This time we're going to be looking at the terminology associated with audience analysis. We'll look at radio-only terms, and then we'll look at terms that are used in radio and television, and we'll take a look at a television application just to get a better sense for how they're used. We're going to start things off with a term called AQH, just for radio. It means average quarter hour. So what we're saying with this is we're interested in how many people tuned into a radio station for at least 5 minutes in a 15-minute period. That is our average quarter hour. So if you tuned in at 6 minutes into that quarter hour and watched for 5 minutes, you're going to be counted in this. If you tuned in and listened for maybe a minute and then tuned to something else, you're not going to be counted in this. So it's for 5 minutes within a 15-minute period. This is very important for radio, particularly because there's a lot of tuning in and tuning out. So they're looking at the development of the audience, its ebb and flow over the course of an hour, each hour of the day. That's the average quarter hour. Now another measure that's important in radio is something called TSL, also known as time spent listening. This is a measure of the loyalty that an audience has to a station. It's measuring how long the average person listens to a station within a certain time period. And usually we're looking at within a day. Because some people might tune in and tune out quickly in the morning, and you might have lots of people listening in the morning, but tuning in and tuning out. Whereas if we're thinking about how many people really listen over the course of the day, that's where the TSL comes in, and that shows that they're really interested in the station. And that could be meaningful to the advertisers. So again, time spent listening is the amount of time that the average person spends listening within a certain time period. And as I said, usually that's a day. So it's the average quarter hour persons times the number of quarter hours you're interested in, the number that would take up 1 day per se, or rather over the CUME persons, which is the number of unique people who tuned in at least once during that time period. So you don't have to memorize these complicated formulas here, but I just want you to understand what the relationship is. The formulas that you will have to know are these next ones. So these ones that we want to talk about here apply to radio and television. So the rating is the first one that's important. Rating is going to tell us how many people tuned in compared to all of the people in that area of interest. Okay, it's kind of general. Let's get into a little more detail. So it's an estimate of the number of people, if it's radio, or households, if it's television, that were watching or listening at a certain time or to a certain program compared to all the people in that area. So if it's a national concern, if we want to know what the national ratings are, it's everybody in the United States. If it's a local interest and it's television, we're interested in the DMA, so the total number of people in the designated market area. So it's a number of viewers or listeners over the total viewer or listener population. If it's radio, this is going to be the total number of people in the MSA. If it's television, the DMA is on the bottom. Well, that's pretty helpful, but we could get a little more precise. One of the things I'd like to understand here is that this will tell us how many people were watching or listening compared to everybody, but we have to acknowledge that not everybody is going to be in a position to watch or listen to a show at just any time, day or night, right? So my example usually is the Ellen DeGeneres show. Her program's on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I am most of the time working at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'll never get to watch Ellen. If we look just at the rating, I might look like somebody who could potentially become a viewer to Ellen, but I can't. The share will help narrow that and trim people like me out. So the share is going to show us the percentage of people who are viewing and listening, but compared to other people, all the ones who are viewing or listening at that time. Now this is really helpful because now we know somebody made a choice to watch your program, if you're a network or a local station, versus other shows. Or there are other people who chose something else. And if you can learn more about them, maybe there are ways you can get them to join or watch your show or listen to your station if you promote it properly. So here's a quick application in a TV environment. here's, let's say, an average evening at 8 o'clock across network shows. So these are the broadcast networks: CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, CW. Here are shows: Survivor, Goldberg's, Blacklist, X-Files, Riverdale. They're right now listed in their order of their rating based on this demographic, 18 to 49. It's the most desirable right now for advertisers. So what we do is we focus on that, and we see 1.7 here. So that's the percentage of people who could possibly have been watching television in this national survey, which means everybody in the United States. So 1.7% of the United States was tuned in to Survivor, and everybody else was doing something else. Here we have the share. Now you see the share is larger than the rating, because what we've done is we've made the denominator smaller. The share is telling us we have 7% of the people who were watching television at that time chose Survivor. That means 93% chose something else to watch. So that's useful. And then we see the CUME, that's the number of unique people who are watching, live or within the same day. Remember that we take these signals and we send them to Nielsen by 3 o'clock in the morning. So somebody who watched Survivor delayed, maybe they recorded it and watched it 2 hours later, that will also count the same day. So this gives you a sense for how ratings and shares are going to be applied in a national television market approach.